The creepy neighbor. When I first moved into my new apartment, I was excited for a fresh start. The neighborhood seemed quiet, the rent was affordable, and the people kept to themselves, just the way I liked it. The building itself was old, but it had a charm that drew me in. Little did I know, this place harbored a darkness I could have never imagined. It started the day I moved in. As I carried boxes up to my third-floor apartment, I noticed a man standing in the hallway. He was tall, maybe in his late 40s, with greasy black hair and pale, almost sickly skin. His eyes locked onto mine as I passed, but he didn't say a word. He just stood there watching. I gave him a polite nod, but he didn't respond. His expression was vacant, yet his eyes burned with an intensity that made my skin crawl. I told myself he was probably just an awkward neighbor. Everyone has their quirks, right? The first night in the apartment was uneventful, but I woke up to a faint tapping noise around 3 a.m. At first, I thought it was just the building settling, but the sound was too deliberate, like someone tapping on the wall just once every few seconds. I pressed my ear against the wall, and it stopped. The next day, I ran into the landlord while checking my mailbox. I mentioned the noise, hoping it was just a plumbing issue or something mundane. He looked uneasy. "Oh, that's probably Mr. Collins," he said. "He lives next door to you. Bit of an odd guy, but harmless." Harmless. That word stuck with me. Over the next week, I started noticing strange things about Mr. Collins. Whenever I left my apartment, I could feel his eyes on me. He would always seem to be in the hallway, lingering near his door, pretending to adjust a light fixture or sweep the floor. One evening, I came home late from work and found a note taped to my door. The handwriting was jagged and barely legible. "I've seen you looking at me. Stay on your side of the wall." I froze. I hadn't been looking at him. If anything, I tried to avoid eye contact at all costs. I crumpled the note and threw it away, but that night, the tapping started again. This time, it was louder and more erratic. I banged on the wall in frustration. "Cut it out!" I yelled. The tapping stopped, and for a moment, I felt victorious. But then, I heard it, a slow, deliberate knock on my front door. My heart pounded as I approached the peephole. There was no one there, but as I stood frozen, I saw a shadow move just out of view. I called the landlord the next day, demanding to know more about Mr. Collins. "He's been here a long time," the landlord said hesitantly. "Keeps to himself. I've never had any real complaints about him." I wasn't convinced. Over the next few weeks, the strange occurrences escalated. My mail started disappearing, and I found muddy footprints leading up to my door. One night, I woke up to the sound of my doorknob jiggling. I called the police, but by the time they arrived, there was no one there. The officers took a report, but didn't seem overly concerned. "Probably a prank," one of them said. "Keep your doors locked." The following night, I installed a camera in the hallway outside my apartment. I needed proof that I wasn't losing my mind. For 2 nights, nothing happened. Then on the third night, I reviewed the footage and saw him. Mr. Collins stood outside my door at 3:15 a.m., staring at the camera. He didn't move, didn't blink, just stood there for over an hour before silently retreating to his apartment. I showed the footage to the landlord, but he shrugged it off. "He's harmless," he repeated. "Just a little off." I didn't feel safe anymore. I started making plans to move, but before I could, things took a horrifying turn. One night, I came home to find my apartment unlocked. Nothing appeared to be missing, but something felt off. On my bed, I found a piece of paper with a single word written on it. Mine. I packed a bag and decided to stay at a friend's place for the night. When I returned the next day, the smell hit me before I even opened the door, a putrid stench that made me gag. Inside, I found rotting meat scattered across the floor. On the walls, smeared in what I hoped was ketchup but feared wasn't, were the words, "You can't leave." I called the police again, and this time, they took me seriously. They searched Mr. Collins' apartment, but found nothing incriminating. He denied everything, claiming he was being harassed by me. I moved out the next week, breaking my lease and never looking back. But sometimes late at night, I still hear that faint tapping sound in my dreams. And I wonder if he's watching someone else now, waiting for his next victim.